What's up, Meta-Nerds? Let's do a complete breakdown of the Punic-class Supercarrier. This ship was born in the turbulent decades before the Human-Covenant War, a period when humanity's expanding colonial sphere was increasingly threatened by political instability and widespread insurrection. It's humans fighting humans before the arrival of the Covenant. Designed and constructed by Sino-Viet heavy machinery for the colonial military authority around the year 2490, the class represented the CMA's desire for a ship that could decisively project force across far-flung outer colonies. And so these vessels were intended not merely as carriers. They weren't just moving Marines around to hotspots, but now there was a need for strategic flagships, massive, heavily armored ships that could carry entire aerospace wings, or deliver frigates and impose overwhelming naval superiority wherever they appeared. When the CMA's influence waned and the UNSC absorbed much of its naval infrastructure, the Punic-class transitioned into UNSC service. And this absorption meant the UNSC suddenly inherited some of the largest and most powerfully armed carriers humanity had ever built. Warships whose sheer scale foreshadowed the colossal fleet actions to come during the Covenant War. Because in terms of raw engineering, the Punic-class Supercarrier is one of the largest things humans ever built before the Infinity program. The ship stretched to 4,000 meters, or 2.5 miles, and have a mass around 670 million tons. It dwarfed every other human warship that came before, with the closest contemporary being the Epoch-class heavy carrier, which was 2,563 meters long and roughly 35 million tons. But it's tiny compared to the Punic, about 36% shorter, but 95% less mass. The Epoch also carried far lighter armament, including a single light Mac, and significantly fewer missiles and point defense systems. The Punic's hull was clad in thick slabs of titanium A battleplate, giving the ship survivability on par with a frontline capital ship, in the role of a supercarrier. Their block-like frame houses a massive, forward-mounted CR-01D Series 6 magnetic accelerator cannon, or MAC gun, while the broad rectangular hull carries layered armor plating and a cube-like central structure. The propulsion array consists of 5 fusion drives, 1 primary engine and 4 secondary thrusters, enabling surprisingly decent sublight maneuvering for such a bulky ship. And of course it has a Shaw Fujikawa Translight engine, which allows for slip-space travel. The ship's midsection and ventral wings are dominated by large hangar facilities and docking structures, with 20 hangar bays, and wings capable of mounting multiple D-20 Heron heavy dropships, and at least 4 dedicated frigate docks, essentially allowing the Punic-class to act as a mobile naval base capable of deploying whole escort groups from within its hull. And there's a weapons suite to match. Its primary armament consists of 2 of those CR-01D Series 6 MAC cannons. These are backed by 2 Mark 15 breakwater naval coil gun batteries. And if it ever finds itself in a standoff or in fleet engagements, it has 100 M42 Archer missile pods and 20 M96 Howler missile pods, delivering both long-range fire to keep ships away and massive multi-target missile saturation capabilities if the fighting does move a lot closer. And for defensive and anti-fighter capabilities, this supercarrier has 80 M85 Scythe anti-aerospace turrets and 100 M965 Fortress point defense guns, forming a dense perimeter that makes it so larger ships are getting hit by the MAC, the coil gun or the missile pods, and all the smaller ships trying to get in closer, with ideas of boarding or bombing, those should not be able to make it past these 180 guns. You put it all together and you see that it's not just a carrier, something that has to hide behind its escorts. It itself is a frontline capital ship that would go on to show that it was capable of trading blows with Covenant vessels head-on, functioning as both a carrier and heavy line combatant. The Punic would only eventually be surpassed by the Infinity-class supercarrier, whose lead vessel, the UNSC Infinity, is 5,694 meters, or 3.5 miles long, and has a mass greater than 900 million tons, so it's 42% longer and 35% more mass than the Punic. Infinity also carries 4 MAC cannons, hundreds of missile pods, and over 830 point defense guns. But it is benefiting from advanced Forerunner-derived tech, which was of course unavailable when the Punic-class was built. So in a way, you could say that the Punic is the greatest purely human-made creation. The Infinity is the result of this human Forerunner tech synthesis. And of course, since the Covenant War, all these ships would be influenced by alien contact. So you can see the Punic as the final creation in the solely human versus human wars, stretching from our most archaic ancestors in prehistory up to trying to maintain peace across the galaxy in the colonies. The Punic is the greatest and last of these vessels that was made using only human intelligence and intended to be used against other humans. As for its service history, it first saw action against human insurrectionists in the outer colonies, where its sheer size and deployment capability allowed them to act as command hubs during major suppression campaigns. And when the Human Covenant War erupted, they became crucial assets in humanity's desperate defensive efforts. And although incredibly powerful, the Covenant's technological superiority and plasma weaponry inflicted heavy losses on this class of ship. And by 2552, only a handful of Punic-class vessels remained spaceworthy. One of the most notable, the UNSC Trafalgar, fought during the fall of Reach but was ultimately destroyed. Its loss symbolizing the twilight of the pre-Infinity era of human shipbuilding. It seemed like even our greatest warfare technology was not enough. But as the war progressed, and humanity did prove victorious, we entered into the post-war reconstruction and next-generation technology era. The Punic-class Supercarrier stood as a reminder of this transitional age, the last and greatest example of industrial-era human naval engineering before the advent of hybrid, Forerunner-infused ships of the late 26th century. And so that's it for the breakdown. If you appreciate that I didn't drag this on unnecessarily, please hit that like button, it really does help out. I know there's not a lot here, but for the completionist-minded like myself, I felt that this ship definitely needed to be highlighted. It plays such an interesting role in human and UNSC history. But most important of all, remember, all of the wars here on Earth will be seen as mere practice for those coming space battles.